Captain Ilara Venn squinted at the holographic display, her weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow. The jagged, cratered surface of Europa 742 loomed before them, an unremarkable moon orbiting a gas giant in a system they designated VS-2209. After months of uneventful exploration in this uncharted region of space, Ilara's crew was growing restless. "Anything interesting down there, Zix?" she asked, glancing at her Arcturian science officer. The alien's tentacles waved in a gesture Ilara had come to recognize as frustration. "Negative, Captain," Zix replied, multifaceted eyes blinking in sequence. "Just another dead rock. Shall we move on to the next system?" Ilara sighed, running a hand through her graying hair. Their mission to map this sector and search for signs of intelligent life was starting to feel futile. "One last sweep," she decided. "Then we'll—" "Wait," interrupted Kai, the young sensor operator. His fingers flew across the haptic interface. "I'm picking up an anomalous energy signature. Faint, but definitely artificial." The bridge of the UES horizon hummed with sudden tension as the crew snapped to attention. Ilara leaned forward, heart racing. "On screen," she ordered. A holographic display shifted, zooming in on a region near the moon's equator. A pulsing red dot marked the source of the energy reading. "It appears to be coming from beneath the surface," Zix observed, tentacles twitching with excitement. "Approximately 500 meters down." Ilara's mind raced through protocols and possibilities. This could be it, the discovery they'd been hoping for. But caution was paramount. "Kai, run a full spectrum analysis." "Zix, I want geological scans of the entire area." "Lita, prep the shuttle for a recon mission." As her crew rushed to comply, Ilara opened a ship-wide channel. "Attention all hands. We may have found something. Stand by for further instructions." Hours later, Ilara stood in the shuttle bay, double-checking the seals on her exosuit. Around her, a hand-picked team of 6 prepared for the descent to Europa 742's surface. The anticipation was palpable. "Remember," she addressed the group, "we don't know what we're walking into down there. Stay alert, stick to protocols, and don't touch anything without clearance." "Clear." A chorus of affirmatives answered her. Satisfied, Ilara led the way into the shuttle. As the bay doors opened, revealing the stark, pockmarked landscape of the moon below, she felt a familiar mix of excitement and trepidation. This was why she joined the Stellar Exploration Corps, for moments like these. The descent was smooth, and soon they were trudging across the icy surface towards the coordinates of the energy signature. Helmet lights illuminated their path as they navigated around jagged rock formations and deep crevasses. "Energy readings are getting stronger," reported Dr. Yara Okafor, the team's xenorchaeologist. "We should be nearly on top of it." As if on cue, Ilara's boot struck something that definitely wasn't rock or ice. She crouched down, brushing away a layer of frost to reveal a smooth metallic surface. "Over here," she called. The team gathered around, tools already in hand. As they cleared more of the area, the true scale of their discovery became apparent. It wasn't just a small artifact. They were standing on top of a massive structure buried beneath the moon's surface. "This is incredible," breathed Lita, the pilot, her voice filled with awe. "How long do you think it's been here?" Dr. Okafor ran a scanner over the exposed metal. "Preliminary dating suggests at least 100,000 years, maybe more." Ilara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the frigid environment. "All right, let's find a way in." Carefully, it took another hour of searching before they located what appeared to be an airlock. The alien mechanism resisted at first, but between Zix's technical expertise and some careful application of force, they managed to cycle it open. Stale air rushed out as the inner door slid aside, revealing a dark corridor that stretched into the depths of the structure. Ilara led the way, pulse pounding in her ears. The beam of her helmet light illuminated walls covered in intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and move in the shadows. "These markings," Dr. Okafor murmured, running a gloved hand over the surface. "They're like nothing I've ever seen. Some kind of written language, maybe." As they progressed deeper into the facility, signs of advanced technology became more apparent. Dormant control panels lined the walls, and strange, organic-looking conduits snaked along the ceiling. "The energy signature is emanating from a chamber about 50 meters ahead," Zix reported, consulting a handheld scanner. They found themselves in a vast, circular room dominated by a central pillar that pulsed with a soft purple light. Surrounding it were what appeared to be stasis pods, each large enough to hold a being twice the size of a human. "Holy shit," whispered Kai, voicing what they were all thinking. Ilara approached one of the pods, wiping away a layer of condensation from its surface. She jerked back with a startled cry. Inside was a creature unlike anything she'd ever seen or imagined, a mass of writhing tentacles and eyes, somehow both solid and ethereal at the same time. "It's alive," Zix announced, scanners whirring, but in some kind of deep hibernation. As the team spread out to examine the room, Dr. Okafor called out from near the central pillar. "Captain, I think I found something. It looks like a warning." Ilara joined her, studying the holographic display that had flickered to life. Alien symbols scrolled past, incomprehensible yet somehow conveying a sense of urgency. "Can you make any sense of it?" Ilara asked. Dr. Okafor shook her head. "Not yet, but the repeating patterns suggest it's some kind of automated message, maybe an explanation of why this place exists." A sudden tremor shook the chamber, causing everyone to stumble. Dust and small debris rained down from the ceiling. "What was that?" Lita asked, alarmed. Before anyone could respond, a deafening screech filled the air, seeming to come from everywhere at once. The purple light in the central pillar flared brilliantly, and the stasis pods began to hum with energy. "We need to leave. Now," Ilara shouted over the cacophony. "Back to the shuttle." As they ran, the very walls of the structure seemed to come alive, pulsing and shifting. The markings they'd observed earlier were definitely moving now, coalescing into monstrous shapes that reached out with ethereal tendrils. They'd barely made it back to the airlock, sealing it behind them just as something massive slammed against the other side. The team sprinted across the moon's surface, the ground quaking beneath their feet. Only when they were safely back aboard the horizon did Ilara allow herself to breathe. As the ship broke orbit, sensors showed massive energy spikes all across Europa 742. "What the hell did we just wake up?" Lita asked, voice shaking. Ilara had no answer, but as she watched the moon recede on the view screen, a sense of foreboding settled over her. Whatever they'd discovered down there, she feared it was only the beginning of something much larger, and much more terrifying, than they could possibly imagine. Awakening. Dr. Yara Okafor hunched over her workstation, eyes burning from hours of staring at alien glyphs. It had been 3 months since the UES Horizon's fateful discovery on Europa 742, and the xenorchaeologist had barely slept since. The holographic projections floating before her depicted the strange, shifting symbols they'd encountered in the alien facility. A soft chime announced a visitor. Yara looked up to see Captain Ilara Ven entering the lab, concern etched on her face. "Any progress?" Ilara asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Yara sighed, rubbing her temples. "Some. I've managed to isolate recurring patterns, but deciphering their meaning is challenging. It's unlike any language we've encountered before. The symbols seem to change based on context, almost as if they're alive." Ilara nodded, her expression grim. "Keep at it. We need to know what that warning said." As the captain turned to leave, Yara called out, "There is one thing. It's not much, but I've managed to translate what I believe is a name, or maybe a title. It keeps appearing in the text. The dreaming ones. A shudder passed through Ilara. The beings in those stasis pods. I think so, Yara confirmed. Whatever they are, they seem to be central to the message. Before Ilara could respond, the ship's AI chimed in. Captain, incoming priority transmission from Stellar Exploration Command. Marked urgent. Ilara's brow furrowed. I'll take it in my ready room. Keep working, Doctor. I have a feeling we're running out of time. As Ilara hurried to her ready room, a sense of dread settled in the pit of her stomach. The face that greeted her on the view screen did nothing to alleviate it. Admiral Chen looked like he hadn't slept in days. Captain Ven, he began without preamble. We have a situation. Multiple situations, actually, all potentially connected to your discovery. Ilara leaned forward. What's happened, sir? The Admiral's image was replaced by a series of reports and images. In the past week, we've had 7 incidents across different sectors. Outposts going dark, ships disappearing. And he paused, seeming to steel himself. Sightings of creatures that match your team's descriptions of what you saw in those stasis pods. Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. We sealed the facility. There's no way they could have. It gets worse. Admiral Chen interrupted. We've detected energy signatures identical to the one you found on Europa 742 on no less than 12 different worlds, some inhabited. The implications hit Ilara like a physical blow. There are more outposts. And they're waking up. Chen nodded gravely. Whatever you stumbled upon, Captain, it wasn't isolated. We're dealing with something far bigger than we initially thought. As the Admiral continued his briefing, detailing the various incidents, Ilara's mind raced. The creatures they'd seen, the incomprehensible technology, the warning they couldn't decipher, it was all part of something ancient and vast. What are our orders, sir? Ilara asked when Chen had finished. For now, continue your research. You're our best lead on understanding what we're up against. I'm redirecting additional resources to your location, including a linguistics team to assist Dr. Okafor. After the transmission ended, Ilara sat in stunned silence for several moments. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. Their discovery had set something in motion, something that threatened not just humanity, but potentially all life in the galaxy. A sudden commotion from the bridge snapped her out of her reverie. Racing out of her ready room, Ilara found the crew in a frenzy of activity. Report, she barked. Zix's tentacles were a blur over the science station controls. Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge from Europa 742. It's like the entire moon is coming alive. On the main view screen, the once dead rock was now a swirling mass of ethereal energy, pulsing with that same purple light they'd seen in the alien facility. It's not just Europa 742. Kai added, his voice tight with stress. We're picking up similar readings from multiple locations across the sector. Whatever's happening, it's spreading. Ilara's mind flashed back to the writhing, tentacled horrors they'd seen in the stasis pods. Were they now loose, free to roam the stars? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Sound General Quarters, she ordered, and get me a secure line to Admiral Chen. He needs to know about this immediately. As klaxons blared and the crew rushed to battle stations, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing the opening salvo of a war, one they hadn't even known was coming. In the days that followed, reports flooded in from across known space. Colony worlds going dark, bizarre atmospheric changes on populated planets, and sightings of creatures that defied description. The dreaming ones, as Dr. Okafor had named them, were no longer sleeping. Governments and military forces scrambled to respond, but it quickly became clear that conventional weapons had little effect on these entities. They seemed to exist partially outside of normal spacetime, making them maddeningly difficult to combat or even comprehend. Aboard the Horizon, Ilara and her crew worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the alien outpost. Dr. Okafor made incremental progress in translating the warning message, each new fragment adding to a picture that grew more terrifying by the day. The dreaming ones, Yara explained during one tense briefing. They're not just a species. They're gardeners, in a sense. They seed worlds with life, let it grow and evolve, and then return to harvest. The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity, and perhaps all known intelligent life in the galaxy, was nothing more than a crop to these ancient beings. As if to punctuate this revelation, a priority alert came through from Stellar Command. A major colony world, Nueva Terra, had gone completely silent. The last transmissions reported reality itself breaking down and monsters from beyond the stars. Ilara made a decision. Set a course for Nueva Terra, maximum warp. We need to see firsthand what we're up against. As the horizon streaked through space towards the beleaguered colony, Ilara found herself in the ship's observatory, staring out at the star-streaked void. The galaxy she'd spent her life exploring suddenly felt alien and hostile. A presence at her side startled her from her thoughts. It was Zix, the Arcturian's eyes reflecting the starlight. "Do you think we can stop them, Captain?" the alien asked, a tremor in its usually steady voice. Ilara wished she had a reassuring answer. Instead, she placed a hand on Zix's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity across species. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we have to try. For all our sakes." As if in response to her words, the ship dropped out of warp, and the red giant that Nueva Terra orbited filled the view screen. But where a thriving colony world should have been, there was only a roiling mass of impossible geometries and writhing tentacles, all bathed in that now familiar purple glow. The dreaming ones were awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. First contact. The bridge of the UES horizon was eerily silent as the crew stared at the nightmare that had once been Nueva Terra, where a vibrant colony world of 12 million souls had thrived just days ago. There now floated a writhing mass of tentacles and impossible geometries, all pulsing with that sickly purple light. Captain Ilara Ven's knuckles were white as she gripped the arms of her command chair. "Life signs?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zix's tentacles danced over the console. "Inconclusive, Captain. Our sensors can't make sense of whatever that is. But I am detecting massive energy fluctuations and spatial distortions throughout the region." "Captain," Kai interjected, his voice tight with tension, "we're being hailed. It's coming from the planet." Ilara exchanged a glance with her first officer, Commander Ravi Sharma. His usually stoic face was pale with shock. "On screen," she ordered, steeling herself. The main view screen flickered to life, and collective gasps echoed across the bridge. The image before them defied comprehension. A shifting, undulating mass of eyes, mouths, and tendrils, all somehow coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, reverberating through the ship and through their very minds. "We are awake. We are hungry. We are home." Ilara fought against the wave of nausea and disorientation that washed over her. "This is Captain Ilara Ven of the United Earth Ship Horizon." "Who? What are you?" The creature's form rippled, and Ilara could have sworn she saw faces. Human faces, swirling within its mass. "We are the dreaming ones. We are the gardeners and the harvest. We are the beginning and the end. What have you done with the people of Nueva Terra?" Ilara demanded, struggling to keep her voice steady. A sound that might have been laughter echoed through the bridge, sending shivers down everyone's spines. "They are part of us now, as all will be in time." Before Ilara could respond, the transmission cut off abruptly. Alarms blared across the ship as spatial distortions began to form around the horizon. "Evasive maneuvers," Ilara shouted. "Get us out of here, maximum warp." As the horizon streaked away from the horror that was once Nueva Terra, Ilara knew that this encounter had changed everything. The threat they faced was beyond anything humanity, or any known species, had ever encountered. In the days that followed, similar reports came in from across the galaxy. The Dreaming Ones were making contact with various worlds and species, each encounter leaving devastation and terror in its wake. On the Arcturian homeworld, vast swaths of the planet's famous crystal forests had transformed into writhing masses of tentacles. The Volcran Imperium, once the most militant force in the known galaxy, had gone silent after reporting reality itself unraveling at the edges of their space. Even the enigmatic Zalthu, an ancient race known for their mastery of quantum mechanics, seemed powerless in the face of this threat. Their emissaries arrived at human space stations, seeking asylum and babbling about the end of all things. As panic spread across inhabited space, governments struggled to maintain order. The Galactic Federation, a loose coalition of spacefaring races, convened an emergency session to address the crisis. Ilara found herself standing before the Federation Council, recounting the Horizon's discoveries and encounters. The chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all united in their fear and desperation. The Dreaming Ones claimed to be both our creators and our destroyers, Ilara explained, her voice echoing through the vast hall. They see us as nothing more than a crop to be harvested, but we faced extinction before, and we'd survived. Together, we can find a way to stop them. Her words were met with a mix of hope and skepticism. The Volcran representative, Admiral Cathax, rose to speak. Pretty words, Captain, but how do you propose we fight an enemy that can reshape reality itself? Our most powerful weapons are useless against them. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ilara took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to propose would be controversial. We fight fire with fire. The Dreaming Ones' power comes from their ability to manipulate the fabric of space-time. We need to learn to do the same. The chamber erupted into chaos. Shouts of "impossible" and "too dangerous" filled the air. But Ilara pressed on. Dr. Okafor and her team have made progress in deciphering the alien language we discovered. With the combined scientific minds of all our races, we might be able to unlock their secrets. As the debate raged on, a commotion at the chamber's entrance drew everyone's attention. A group of Zalthu burst in, their normally luminescent skin dull and pulsing erratically. "They're here," one of them shouted, panic evident in their multi-tone voice. "The Dreaming Ones have breached the station's defenses." Panic ensued as the council members rushed for the exits. Ilara found herself swept up in the chaos, struggling to maintain order. "We need to evacuate." To the emergency shuttles. As they raced through the station's corridors, the very walls seemed to come alive, twisting and warping in impossible ways. Tentacles burst from air vents, grasping at fleeing beings. The screams of those caught echoed hauntingly. Ilara managed to get a group of survivors, including representatives from several key races, onto a shuttle. As they pulled away from the disintegrating station, she watched in horror as a massive otherworldly form engulfed the structure. In that moment, as the shuttle streaked away into the void, Ilara realized that traditional diplomacy and military tactics were useless against this threat. The very nature of existence was at stake, and they would need to transcend their current understanding of the universe to have any hope of survival. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life, and Admiral Chen's grim face appeared on the screen. "Captain Ven, I assume the Federation Council meeting didn't go as planned." Ilara let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that, sir. The Dreaming Ones attacked the station. We barely made it out." Chen's expression darkened. "It's happening everywhere, Ilara. We're losing worlds faster than we can evacuate them. But your idea about using their own technology against them, it might be our only shot. What are you proposing, sir?" "I'm authorizing Project Nexus," Chen said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "We're bringing together the best scientific minds from every allied race. Your ship, the Horizon, will be the base of operations. Dr. Okafor's research is the key." Ilara felt a mix of hope and trepidation. Project Nexus had been a theoretical last resort plan, one that involved pushing the boundaries of known physics to create weapons capable of manipulating spacetime itself. The potential for disaster was enormous, but as she looked at the faces of the survivors around her, she knew they had no choice. "Understood, sir. We'll make it work. We have to." As the shuttle rendezvoused with the horizon, Ilara gazed out at the star-studded void. Somewhere out there, the Dreaming Ones were advancing, consuming worlds and civilizations that had stood for millennia. The nature of first contact had always been a subject of debate among spacefaring races. Would it be peaceful, violent, incomprehensible? Now they had their answer, and it was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. But as Ilara watched her crew work alongside the alien refugees, each bringing their unique knowledge and perspectives to bear on the problem, she felt a glimmer of hope. The Dreaming Ones may have seen them as nothing more than a crop to be harvested, but they had underestimated the tenacity of life, the strength found in diversity, and the power of a united front against extinction. The battle for survival had begun, and the fate of all conscious beings hung in the balance. Resistance. The UES horizon had become a beacon of hope in a galaxy descending into chaos. Itals, once populated solely by the human crew, now bustled with a diverse array of alien scientists and refugees. The ship had been transformed into the heart of Project Nexus, humanity's desperate attempt to find a way to combat the Dreaming Ones. Captain Ilara Ven stood in the newly expanded laboratory, watching as Dr. Yara Okafor collaborated with a Zalthu quantum physicist and an Arcturian bioengineer. The trio were hunched over a holographic display of the alien glyphs, arguing in a mix of languages that the ship's universal translator struggled to keep up with. "Any progress?" Ilara asked, approaching the group. Dr. Okafor looked up, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. "Some," she replied. "We've managed to isolate a series of symbols that seem to relate to the manipulation of spacetime. The Zalthu understanding of quantum mechanics has been invaluable in decoding the underlying principles." The Zalthu scientist, whose name was an unpronounceable series of light pulses, flickered in agreement. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered," it communicated. "The Dreaming Ones don't just manipulate reality, they exist partially outside of it. That's what makes them so difficult to combat with conventional means." Ilara nodded, trying to wrap her head around the concept. "And how does that help us fight them?" The Arcturian, Sixel, waved its tentacles excitedly. "We believe we can use this knowledge to create a form of shielding that exists in the same state as the Dreaming Ones. In theory, it could protect our ships and even our worlds from their reality warping effects." A spark of hope ignited in Ilara's chest, but she tempered it with caution. "How long until we can test a prototype?" Dr. Okafor's expression turned grim. "That's the problem, Captain. The energy requirements for even a small-scale test are enormous. We'd need a power source unlike anything currently in existence." Before Ilara could respond, the ship's AI chimed in. "Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Chen. Priority Alpha." Ilara excused herself and hurried to the bridge. Chen's holographic form materialized before her, his face haggard and in uniform disheveled. "Captain, we're out of time," he said without preamble. "The Dreaming Ones have breached the Sol system. Earth has less than 72 hours before they arrive." The news hit Ilara like a physical blow. Earth, humanity's cradle, the heart of the Federation. If it fell, "What are your orders, sir?" she managed to ask. Chen's hologram flickered, a hint of static creeping in at the edges. "We're initiating Operation Lighthouse. All remaining fleet assets are converging on Earth for a last stand. But more importantly, we need Project Nexus operational. Whatever Dr. Okafor and her team have cooked up, we need it now." Ilara's mind raced. "Admiral, we're close to a breakthrough, but we lack the necessary power source. Without it—" "I'm well aware, Captain," Chen interrupted. "That's why I'm sending you coordinates to a highly classified research facility. It's called the Forge." As the coordinates came through, Ilara's eyes widened in recognition. The forge was little more than a rumor among fleet officers, a place where the most cutting-edge and dangerous technologies were developed in secret. The forge houses an experimental zero-point energy reactor, Chen continued. If anything can power your prototype, that's it. But I warn you, Captain, the forge is located in contested space. The Dreaming Ones have a strong presence in the area. Ilara straightened, determination setting in. Understood, sir. We'll get it done. As the transmission ended, Ilara turned to her crew. Plot a course for these coordinates, maximum warp, and sound battle stations. We're heading into the fire. The journey to the forge was fraught with danger. Twice, the Horizon had to drop out of warp to evade spatial anomalies created by the Dreaming Ones. Each time, they caught glimpses of worlds twisted beyond recognition, serving as grim reminders of what was at stake. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, they found not a research facility, but a massive space station unlike anything Ilara had ever seen. It was a twisting structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy conduits, looking almost organic in its design. Life signs? Ilara asked as they approached. Zix's tentacles danced over the console. Negative, Captain. But I'm detecting massive energy readings. The station appears to be fully operational. As they docked with the forge, Ilara led a mixed team of humans and aliens into the facility. The interior was a maze of laboratories and test chambers, each more bizarre than the last. In one room, they found swirling vortexes suspended in containment fields. In another, fragments of what appeared to be alternate realities played out in shimmering holograms. This place, Dr. Okafor breathed, it's incredible. The advancements here could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Assuming we have a universe left to study, Ilara reminded her grimly. Let's find that reactor. They eventually located the zero-point energy core at the heart of the station. It was a massive spherical chamber, at the center of which hovered a swirling mass of energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. As Dr. Okafor and the alien scientists worked to interface their equipment with the reactor, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Captain. Kai's voice came through the comm. We've got incoming. Multiple spatial rifts opening around the forge. Ilara's blood ran cold. The Dreaming Ones. They must have detected the energy signature. She turned to the science team. How much longer? We need at least 10 minutes to stabilize the connection, Dr. Okafor replied, her fingers flying over the controls. You've got 5, Ilara said, unholstering her weapon. Everyone else with me. We need to buy them time. What followed was a desperate battle unlike any Ilara had ever experienced. The Dreaming Ones poured through rifts in reality, their forms twisting and changing as they advanced. Conventional weapons seemed to pass right through them, but Ilara's team had a few surprises of their own. Zix deployed prototype phase shifters that allowed their weapons to partially exist in the same state as the Dreaming Ones. The Zalthu scientist used its mastery of quantum mechanics to create localized pockets of altered reality, trapping some of the entities. But it wasn't enough. For every Dreaming One they managed to stop, 2 more took its place. The defenders were pushed back, inch by inch, towards the reactor chamber. Just as all seemed lost, Dr. Okafor's voice rang out over the comm. It's done. The reactor's linked to our systems. A blinding flash of energy erupted from the core, washing over the station. When it cleared, Ilara saw that the Dreaming Ones had vanished. In their place were shimmering barriers of energy, pulsing with the same otherworldly light as the aliens themselves. It worked, Dr. Okafor said, her voice filled with awe. We've created a shield that exists partially outside of normal spacetime, just like them. As the team rushed to transplant the technology back to the Horizon, Ilara allowed herself a moment of hope. They had a weapon now, a way to fight back against the incomprehensible horror that threatened all life in the galaxy. But as they prepared to depart for Earth, where the final battle awaited, Ilara couldn't shake a nagging doubt. They had touched powers beyond their understanding, peered into the depths of reality itself. What unforeseen consequences might their actions have unleashed? As the forge grew small in the view screen, Ilara sent a silent prayer to whatever forces might be listening. They were the resistance now, the last line of defense against the unthinkable. And the fate of every living being in the galaxy rested on their shoulders. Revelation. The UES Horizon dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system, and Captain Ilara Ven felt her heart sink. The once familiar sight of humanity's home system was now a twisted nightmare of spatial anomalies and ethereal tendrils. Earth itself was barely visible, shrouded in a pulsating purple haze. "Status report," Ilara demanded, her voice tight. Zix's tentacles flew over the console. The Federation fleet is engaged with Dreaming One manifestations throughout the system. Earth's orbital defenses are still holding, but they're weakening rapidly. "What about our new shielding?" Ilara asked, turning to Dr. Okafor. The xenorchaeologist nodded grimly. "Online and functioning. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Ilara took a deep breath. "All right. Transmit the shield specifications to all allied ships. Then set a course for Earth. We're going in." As the horizon plunged into the chaotic battle, Ilara watched with a mix of hope and trepidation as ships across the fleet began to shimmer with the otherworldly energy of their new defenses. For the first time since this war began, they were able to withstand direct attacks from the Dreaming Ones. But it wasn't enough. For every ship they saved, another fell to the reality-warping powers of their enemy. The Dreaming Ones were legion, and they were reshaping the very fabric of space to their will. "Captain," Kai called out, his voice strained, "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup on Earth's surface. It's like the planet itself is changing." On the view screen, Ilara watched in horror as great tentacles of earth and stone erupted from the planet's crust, reaching towards the stars. The continents themselves were shifting, forming impossible geometries that hurt to look at. "My God," someone whispered, "they're terraforming Earth into their own image." In that moment, as hope threatened to slip away, a realization struck Ilara. "Dr. Okafor," she said, whirling to face the scientist, "you said the Dreaming Ones exist partially outside of normal spacetime, right?" Yara nodded, confusion evident on her face. "Yes, that's how we based our shielding technology." "And the warning message we found on Europa 742, Ilara pressed. "You said it referred to them as gardeners and harvesters." "That's right. But I don't see." "What if," Ilara interrupted, her mind racing, "what if they're not invaders at all? What if they're caretakers?" A hush fell over the bridge as the implication of her words stank in. It was the Zalthu scientist who broke the silence, its bioluminescent skin pulsing with excitement. "Of course. They seed worlds with life, let it evolve, and then return to what? Ascend it." Dr. Okafor's eyes widened. The facility on Europa 742. It wasn't a prison or a hibernation chamber. It was an incubator. Ilara nodded, the pieces falling into place. "We've been fighting them this whole time, but what if that's not what they want? What if all of this," she gestured to the chaos outside, "is just their way of preparing us for the next stage of evolution?" "But how does that help us now?" Commander Sharman asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Ilara's expression hardened with determination. "We make contact. Real contact. Not as enemies, but as children ready to understand their parents." The plan was risky, bordering on insane. Using the Forge's zero-point reactor technology, they would create a concentrated burst of the same energy that allowed the Dreaming Ones to exist outside normal spacetime. In theory, it would allow Ilara to communicate with them on their level. As the horizon descended into Earth's atmosphere, reality itself seemed to warp around them. The ship shuddered and groaned, pushed to its limits by forces it was never designed to withstand. "We're directly over the largest concentration of Dreaming One energy," Zix reported. Elara nodded, steeling herself. Activate the burst. A blinding flash of energy engulfed the ship, and Elara felt herself shift. It was as if she was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Her consciousness expanded beyond the confines of her physical form. And then she saw them. The Dreaming Ones, in their true form. They were beautiful and terrifying, vast intelligences that spanned galaxies and transcended time itself. And they were surprised. In that moment of connection, a flood of understanding passed between them. Elara saw the grand cycle of the universe: birth, growth, evolution, and transcendence. She understood that the Dreaming Ones weren't destroyers, but gardeners of consciousness itself, guiding life towards a state of existence beyond the physical realm. The terror and destruction they had witnessed wasn't malevolence, but the inevitable growing pains of a species on the brink of cosmic awakening. The Dreaming Ones had returned not to harvest, but to shepherd. With this revelation came a choice. Humanity and its allies could resist, clinging to their current form of existence, or they could embrace the change and evolve into something greater. Elara felt the weight of this decision, not just for humanity, but for all the species of the galaxy. In a moment that stretched into eternity, she made her choice. "We're ready," she communicated, not with words, but with the very essence of her being. "Show us the way." The response was immediate and overwhelming. The chaos that had engulfed the Earth began to stabilize, but not by returning to its previous state. Instead, the planet, and every being on it, began to transform. Elara found herself back on the bridge of the horizon, but everything was different. Her perceptions had expanded, allowing her to see layers of reality she never knew existed. Around her, her crew and the alien scientists were undergoing similar transformations, their physical forms blurring as their consciousnesses expanded. Through it all, Elara felt a profound sense of peace and understanding. The war was over, not with a victory or a defeat, but with a transcendence. As the transformation spread across the galaxy, Elara realized that this was just the beginning. The Dreaming Ones had opened the door to a new stage of existence, one filled with infinite possibilities and discoveries beyond imagination. The harvest, she now understood, wasn't an end, but a beginning. And as humanity and its allies took their first steps into this new realm of being, Elara knew that the greatest adventure of all was just beginning. In the vast cosmic garden, a new flower had bloomed, ready to join the eternal dance of creation and evolution. The echo of the void had become the symphony of consciousness, reverberating across the universe and beyond.